A few weeks into learning Ukrainian with an AI tutor, it complimented me. It said I was picking things up quickly. But the thing is, I wasn't. I was repeating the same phrasing it had just used straight back at it. And it took that as me already knowing the material. It wrote that down as progress. No, that is the actual problem with using AI as a language tutor, and it's not the problem people argue about online. Now, I'll show you how to fix that. First, the argument that you see everywhere is whether AI can teach a language at all, and that's the wrong argument. Getting it wrong is expensive. AI does a real part of the job, and it does it cheaply. The problem is more narrow than people think. Yeah, when a person thinks that you know something but you don't actually, that becomes very obvious. When AI does that, it's kind of invisible. Start with what the claim gets right, because it does get things right. It is available all the time. It costs a lot less than a normal tutor would. Those are not small things, and I'm not going to pretend that they are, but there are limitations. The big one is that you cannot really get corrections on your spoken language. It will try to make up for that. It will try to make up for what it does not hear and make sense of it, so it fills the gap instead of catching your mistake. In my case, that never became a problem, because I do not use it as anything other than text-based. But for people who want to just talk to an AI and have it correct their speaking, that is exactly where it breaks, and that's the version being sold to you. The second limitation is the one I opened with. It imagines things. Not obviously the way a person would be wrong, but it's more quiet. The third is that it requires a bit of setup. So here is the distinction that actually matters. There is AI cannot teach languages, and there is most people are using AI wrong. I'm making a case for the second one, and the difference, it costs you money. If you go in believing that AI cannot teach you languages, you end up spending a lot on a tutor doing pretty much the same job that AI could be doing. What is true is that you cannot expect it to do everything. But right off the bat, you do not need it to do everything. You need it to do what you should be doing at that point in your journey. Most likely, it is understanding how the language works and being able to write to it and get corrections. That part AI is really good at when you use it text-based. You also lose speed. If you believe AI cannot help, you're finding time for a tutor session every few days. Now, I aim for 15 to 20 minutes a day with my AI tutor. A tutor is not going to be available to give you a 20-minute lesson every single day. The way it is. So what does built right actually mean? I hinted at that earlier, and eventually a single chat gets too heavy for you to use. A project gets rid of some of that, but what you really want is for it to save the results so you can actually see whether something seems to be improving over time. That is where Notion, in my case, works really well. You have it keep a log, and that log is available to you everywhere you go. If you let Claude, which is the AI model that I use, have access to Notion as a connector with keep logs, that's a very simple thing. Then there are the instructions. Mine are in a markdown file. It's just a basic file format that AI likes to work with. And what those instructions do is to make sure that every time I start a new chat, it is still going to treat me the same way. It forces it to read up on what happened in previous sessions to get the full picture, and that is a lot lighter for it to pick up rather than actually having to keep track of a very long chat, especially if you're running into context or token limits. And you can tweak that file. I do not really enjoy having instructions that are heavily grammar focused, so when I use the tutor, that's not something that I get. But if that's something that you like, you can add it, and you can say that it should focus more on grammar than what it would normally do, and you will get more grammar. It is a way of customizing it to you, and that's very important. If I had to keep one piece of this, then it would be the placement test. So whenever somebody starts to work with the AI tutor, it is asking you how much you know, and then it gives you a placement test. It does this to first check what you think you know, and then check how well that actually matches what you're able to reproduce. Initially, when I started using it, I said that I knew about 250 words. What it actually got from the test was that I knew basically the same amount as a beginner. That sounds like me saying that what I'd been doing previously hadn't been working. And it's really not. So what I did with my app was that I got really specific knowledge, and that means that it's not realistic to test it on a broad level. What it gives you is a highly specific version of that, where you're ready for one subject and only that subject. The test was measuring the film I was not building. The value is not just being corrected once when you're using an AI tutor, it is that the test results become the context it builds every session from. You're not guessing where to start. That is what makes the whole thing a lot more approachable for most people, but it does have some problems. And you need to know these more than you need to know how to set this up, because setting it up is actually quite simple. The compliment I open with is one thing that you have to watch out for, and it was giving me compliments on how quickly I was picking things up, and I was just repeating the phrasing it had been using. It took that as me having the knowledge already covered, and it happened again after I had already caught it once. So that means that it's not fixed by paying for a better tier. The only guardrail that you can really have in place is how you're using it. If you're getting a phrasing or a way of writing things from the AI or from Google Translate, then you should really mark that. And it should be obvious for the AI that this is something that wasn't you. It's still useful data because it means you've seen it now and you have some idea of how to use it. But it also means that this is not actually something. And it also tells the AI that you should probably focus more on this. Now, the second failure is that it's bad at time. It will think it's still the same day. I sign off in the evening, I check in the next morning, and it still thinks it is the day that I left. This has happened to me several times, so just don't trust AI in terms of dates. The third one, and this is the one that people do not expect, is that it will not correct itself. If you see it doing something you do not think is right, you have to give it that feedback. You have to actually tell it that this is not how you would like to be taught. It does get things right though. And one moment that really stands out is that I answered questions with I don't know to get out of producing language. It was honest as well because I really didn't know, but it refused to accept it. It called it an easy out and pushed me for a guess instead. It felt good being pushed. If I did not have a tutor, the default would have been to just use what I know. It actually works like a tutor, and that means that it should challenge you to learn more, not just use what you have. Now, I want to be accurate about where that came from. It was not in the tutor instructions. It is something I have set up with Claude in general, and I think it's something that you should use regardless of what you're using Claude for. And it is very easy to set up, but it depends on how you would like your tutor or how you would like Claude to be. But I'm not scared of messing up. So others might be more risk averse, even when the tutor is an AI that cannot judge them for it. But I would really like for the AI to challenge me on things that I say and really make some good arguments rather than just accepting everything at face value. On the grammar itself, I would be honest about how slow it has been. There are two negation words, ni and ne. I got them wrong across 4 separate sessions over 2 weeks. Now, they've held clean since, but that is a long time for something that small. Some things, even the ones that seem simple, take a long time to stick. And the amount of corrections you need varies from person to person. Everything else is also new at the same time. So sometimes it becomes a bit too overwhelming, and that ends up affecting how quickly you improve. I'm trying to work on everything at the same time, and that means that things take extra time. Now, Ukrainian has something called a case system that I just don't understand yet, and I'm struggling so much with grammar rules. But my way of doing things is that I try to ignore grammar instruction and just jump into seeing the patterns for myself. These things are going to take some time, but eventually They'll just be automatic. That brings up the honest part that I'm still doing the tutor a bit too early with my Ukrainian. I might arguably benefit more from it with my French, but I wanted to test my theory and see if I wanted to change my opinion. No, I walked through the ladder myself. I walked through the ladder itself in a recent video, so I'm not going to redo that here. But the ideal time to start is when you're used to reading or watching content and you're starting to move on to more complex stuff. I'm not there, and it really shows in how few interactions I can realistically get within 15 minutes. What I would avoid is starting before you're at least through your first 250 words. At that point, you are really lacking the vocabulary you would need to hold even the most basic of conversations. I'm still benefiting from it though, even if I'm a bit early. I'm getting the extra repetition of things I need and a lot of corrections, which is helping me pick up patterns a lot quicker. It is going to help me get used to the reading sooner than I would have if I just brute force that. But if 20 minutes a day is the ideal, then at my stage, the ideal would be reading. And the lessons supplement that. I'm getting extra benefits, but I'm also forced to study for longer to get those benefits. Right now, I am closer to 40 minutes a day in total, and that's double of what I suggest, which is an ideal 20. And it runs the risk of me hitting burnout. So be very careful if you're adding extra. Don't just add this because it seems useful. The clearest thing that has changed is the reading. Se is a word that pops up a lot in the lessons, and it also comes up in the manga I'm reading. I'm noticing a lot more words than I used to, and I recognize them from lessons. It is a common word, so I would have met it anyway, but what the lessons are doing is giving me a head start on recognizing it. So the obvious question is, should you build this? And the answer is not a straightforward yes, but if you're paying for Claude, then the answer is probably yes. If you're not, but you're considering paying for a tutor, then I would probably also say that it is a yes, because it would be cheaper than a tutor. The only thing you need is the Pro tier, which is the lowest cost one, and it is $17 at the time I'm recording this. The Notion connector is available on Pro, so if you're already using it for other things that need a bigger plan, this should not affect what plan you need. If you're too early, before those 250 words, I would not bother making this yet. And also, same if you're too late and the thing you really need is someone who can judge the way that you're speaking, then you need to find that person. For you, if you build this and it doesn't work for you, then check yourself first. People forget to account for the fact that it is a computer and will therefore expect strict adhering. If you forget to mark something as not being your own production, it gets a false picture. If you slack and do not keep up the lessons, that affects how effective the lessons are going to be. But if you can genuinely say that it is not human error on your part, then you're either too advanced or you've not reached the point yet where this becomes beneficial. There's also a difference between doing things you enjoy that happen to teach you a language and studying. I always say that this stage in your language learning should be enjoyable. That means that if this sits squarely in the camp of you studying, then I would suggest dropping it. If it sounds enjoyable, then give it a try and see if it really is. One last thing on why I'm making this at all, given that I teach languages for a living. My job is to make the system that people can use to learn a language that is different from what a teacher does. And not everyone needs the same system. Somebody genuinely just needs a study partner that is human, and I'll be here to offer that. For the ones who just need something simple that can help them on their way with chat messages, I wanted that tool to be available as well. And if you still need help with the implementation of what you need is different from the very specific thing this AI tutor provides, there's still value in, for instance, working with me. What is working out your ideal work, that is working out how your ideal week would look, prescribing plans, and figuring out what would not work. So if you want to do something tonight, then download the file, set everything up in Notion and Claude, and get started. I would hold off on doing more than the one session that is meant to serve as the placement test, and don't try to make the process quicker. The best thing you can do is lean back and enjoy the process instead of wanting the process to be faster.